Do you also feel that you are changing completely? Maybe even sometimes finding yourself in a bit of a spiritual depression? Sometimes you're on top of the world, then you just have the urge to be a completely normal person? The energies are indeed very significantly fluctuating. And as I mentioned in my last podcast episode, this is truly meant to break open the ring around our heart and the ring around our mind, so we can actually truly awaken to our true greatness. And the energies keep rising higher and higher, and we are now dealing with nothing less than a very, very high intelligence that continues to rise within us. That's what today's podcast episode is about. It's about the topic of awakening, and it's about the topic of spiritual expansion of consciousness. It is an incredibly exciting journey we humans are on. Yes, and if you are interested in that, welcome to your Live Happy podcast. My name is Linda Giese, and I have been a spiritual mentor for 22 years. I am the publisher of the Live Happy podcast, the author of Consciousness Next Level, and the founder of the Being Potential method. Being potentials are indeed your strengths. These are truly the potentials that have been given to you, so to speak, for this life here, so that you can accomplish this incredible evolutionary leap that humanity is currently undergoing. If you're indeed deeply interested in the topic, we're hosting another very, very exciting communication, a free live show. You can find the link to sign up for it right below in the text here for this podcast episode description. So yes, the cosmic, the universal, or even the intelligence of our higher self is increasingly resonating into our field and connecting more and more with us in various ways, in different dimensions and through multiple aspects, touching our consciousness and our spiritual journey. We may indeed feel as if it is descending downwards to us, so to speak, but that is not entirely correct, because in truth it is actually truly rising within us, essentially. And in truth, that is essentially and fundamentally and essentially the key word, because through this process we not only get in touch with our own personal truth, uncovering more and more within ourselves what our true needs are, what is genuinely good for us, what our deepest desires are, what our true, authentic truths are, but we also gain the ability to decipher the universal truth in general more and more effectively. And that is incredibly important because the information that reaches us is becoming increasingly rapid and more turbulent and complex. Indeed, of course, it will also quite certainly contain a lot of falsehoods. And so that we can distinguish well between true and false, we get access to our inner truth, which is an understanding of our core values and beliefs. This inner truth also gives us access to a metaphorical seismograph within us, a highly sensitive tool that allows us to detect even the smallest tremors of falsehood. This seismograph helps us to distinguish the truth from falsehood in the external world. And that's absolutely and undeniably and undoubtedly and incredibly exhilarating because the truth resonates at a completely different frequency than falsehood. That is very, very exciting indeed. The truth has a completely different vibrational signature than falsehood, absolutely. And you can definitely feel that. You don't need to absolutely logically examine in detail whether something is indeed essentially true or not. You can still do that despite everything that has happened. But most importantly of all, and this is really truly exciting, you can actually feel which specific frequency is coming directly towards you. And with that, you can decisively determine what is true or false. And the mind is then able to somehow justify it. Yes, but we know all of this from the past, right? Because when we start to logically pick it apart, we can really get into trouble as we quickly lose ourselves again. Definitely. And as I discussed in great detail in my last podcast episode, you ultimately become more and more of a portal. Yes, a portal of creation and manifestation. You are the portal to new possibilities. It is, of course, very, very important for you to take full responsibility for distinguishing between what is true and what is false, and what is real and what is illusion. Once deep within yourself, both what you consciously and unconsciously send out, and what you take in. And in the age we live in our modern world, where so much can be made to appear incredibly real but doesn't necessarily correspond to the truth, this is an absolutely indispensable skill. It's something we simply have to learn and learn to master. And we will. Yes, We are definitely getting incredible support for this exciting ride and for these remarkable, thrilling stages of humanity's awakening journey. So I would really like to, I think I'll just tell you, I'm wondering, should I tell you or not? But since we're talking about sections and journeys and awakening, I'd really, really like to share something with you. And certainly not so that you think you have to experience exactly the same thing, for heaven's sake, but just so you know for yourself, okay, such phases can be absolutely incredibly spooky. Yes, when your internal seismographs are undoubtedly set into definite motion, when you feel your vibration absolutely on the rise, when things inside you are being completely rearranged, then you are naturally able to perceive things or enter areas that might not have been familiar to you before. And that's exactly what happened to me last Saturday. It was really spooky. I had a vacation dog here, my daughter's dog, and we went for a lot of walks. The weather was so-so, but we were almost always outside and really did a lot. And at some point I noticed, wow, where are all the people? Why is no one around here? And I really walked through our little town and so on, and except for a few people, there was no one outside. And at some point I noticed, wow, even the light is so strange. And then I thought, or the first thought was, wow, are you one of the few survivors of some kind of Armageddon? And then I thought, no, that can't be. And then I saw a few people here and there. So let's say I saw approximately 10 people that day. Yeah, that was really, really spooky. Part of it felt really empty, inwardly empty, almost like a void. And part of it felt radiantly bright, almost blinding. So the contrast between the two was really stark and noticeable. And then I suddenly came to the realization that it was very eerily and unusually quiet indeed. So not only did I not see any people walking or out and about, but there were also hardly any cars driving around. I thought to myself, this particular scene is indeed incredibly spooky. It was really, very truly a bit creepy. All right, then I really thought I was imagining things, but it felt like I had switched dimensions, like I was in a different form of reality. And, the feeling was so intense that I couldn't help but think it was all real, like I was truly experiencing it firsthand. That was really very peculiar indeed. And as it often happens, my intuition said one thing, but my mind said, oh, Gizi is just making things up again, indeed. Quite. Yeah, okay. We turned onto a narrow street, first to the right, then to the left, passing by several houses, and you could see pretty far into the distance. And that's what I did. And I actually saw something, but I could only really see it energetically, as if I were in a tunnel, just kind of observing, really. And there would be like an invisible, but for me, visibly perceptible boundary, which is so extremely transparent and almost imperceptible. And I moved slowly through the long, dark tunnel, feeling the cold, damp walls with my hands. And all of a sudden, there was someone standing stiffly on a few steps to the right in the hallway, looking down at me, but at the same time looking through me. They seemed unusually rigid and almost inhuman. It was unnervingly creepy, but somehow, strangely enough, I had the feeling that he didn't see me at all. He was actually, in fact, completely outside this boundary, this transparent, invisible, and energetic barrier that appeared to be like a tunnel. And then I just kept walking 2, 3, 4 steps, and then again on the right, the same row of houses, just a few more steps. So it sounded like a window slamming shut, like with full force, with a loud bang, and it was startling. But it wasn't that at all, which made it even more surprising. It was opened, but the noise was very unusual to everyone. And then, logically I say, a large dog with shaggy fur and a deep, menacing growl started to growl and then bark loudly, causing quite a commotion and startling everyone in this house. And to me, it sounded like a hellhound, a beast from the darkest depths, or like the powerful roar of a dragon, echoing through the vast mountains. My logic tells me, Linda, that someone indeed perhaps left a window somewhat ajar, and a dog just suddenly growled and barked very angrily and ferociously. But it was really spooky, almost terrifying. It sounded completely different, like nothing I had ever heard before. And a part of me knows for sure, without any doubt, that I'm not wrong about that. Yes, and I believe that if I had been on the other side of the tunnel, I would definitely have perceived it as barking dogs and opening windows. But in this particular frequency that I was experiencing, everything around me seemed incredibly, overwhelmingly, and extremely dark. And then I went home, and that was it for now, I suppose. The reason I'm telling you this is, at the end of the day, oh no, that's not really true at all. And in the late evening, I had 2 visitors, and I honestly told them about it. They are actually open to this kind of thing. And they were like, wow, where were you? Because we didn't notice it like that. Did you? So they mentioned that, in their experience, the world around them was lively and full of activity. Meanwhile, I spent the whole day outside and encountered no more than 10 people at most. This stark contrast made the situation feel very eerie and unsettling. Such things can happen now. You are indeed the portal. You are truly the portal. And that was very pleasant for me. So for me, this world I deliver in was quite pleasant. Me. That's why I was outside for so long. It was really nice. I was just surprised. It was spooky. Yes, indeed. And that experience with this man who appeared to be almost inhuman, and with this hellhound, or dragon's roar, which I perceived as being outside of my reality, but I could just sense it. So, otherwise, it was a really beautiful day. Yes. And you are the portal to a new understanding, and you can deeply feel the profound truth within you. And why did I share this particular story about the experience of feeling the truth so intensely? Because I believe that I perceived this person as unreal and almost dreamlike, and also noticed the barking of the dogs, which was oddly distinct, because this ordinary reality in which we normally find ourselves daily seems so normal and routine to us. It is simply a distorted reality that deviates significantly and evidently from the higher dimensions of perception and understanding. Yes, and once we establish a connection with higher intelligence and dimensions, we can perceive how distorted our seemingly realistic reality is. Understanding this, we realize how much our daily life is shaped by illusions. Yes, it's like in the movie The Matrix, a groundbreaking film that explores the nature of reality and perception. Yes, when you've taken the red pill, a symbol of awakening and enlightenment, and suddenly you can see how lifeless the reality you once believed to be true really is, and as if you can see through the veils of distortion and illusion. Yes, and this is increasingly becoming more and more possible for many people now. Or let's take, in fact, Plato's allegory of the cave, where people actually thought that the shadows on the wall were reality and true life. Yes, until a few of them, a small group, set out on their way, embarking on their journey, and left the cave. And when they wanted to describe what was really out there, they were literally, yes, almost at a loss for words. How can one truly, indeed, describe that? And if you feel like looking deeper for yourself, truly exploring and discovering the depths of your own being, and let's just say, taking the red pill to unveil the hidden truths, yes, and simply want to see behind the illusion and activate yourself to the portal of enlightenment, because you already are. Yes, you already are, genuinely and authentically. Then you must descend to repair all the damage within you that has made you believe you can't do something, that you aren't something. You might feel traumatized, anxious, or like you are this or that, but in reality, you are none of these things. You are much more than these labels. So you have to descend in order to properly repair the damage that has unfortunately occurred. That is your responsibility, and thoroughly. We can't believe that being broken inside will help us move forward. We need to clear that up within ourselves. It's also about freeing ourselves from an illusion. Yes, you will definitely understand what I mean by that. When you have done it, yes, when you have descended and repaired the damage, then you will absolutely understand why I say, then you have also freed yourself from illusions. Because not only the external world, which includes everything around us, contains a complex and intricate matrix, whether it is from political events and media coverage, yes, these pieces of information that create an illusionary world for us. Yes, so to speak, a matrix of deception and falsehoods and complexities that surround us. It's not just this matrix that exists. There is also the matrix within us, where we cling to our poor self, hold on to the terrible stories that have happened, and believe in all the false notions about ourselves that we have mistakenly accepted as wise. And that too is an illusion, and we can free ourselves from it. And we must free ourselves from it if we want to free ourselves from the illusion outside. When you have done that, you will also free all the potentials that are still hidden within you. What are potentials? These are your treasures that are embedded within you, your strengths indeed, your inherent and intrinsic motivators, and those that have been given to you, so to speak, for this life and for this step in evolution. Many of us are the ones who truly and clearly walk the paths from within ourselves with a deep sense of purpose and clarity in their lives and experiences to also be a guide for others. Yes, and maybe you are indeed one of those who have long harbored the desire to truly make something really special out of your life. Yes, if you feel like there's still something indeed waiting for you, then perhaps it might be that this is exactly the path you need to take, namely to descend downwards first and make necessary repairs, in order to then free your potentials. Potentially. Because let's be honest, how can we find ourselves in our lives if we're not willing to look at ourselves and our true selves, and if we're not willing to accept ourselves and our inner thoughts and our deepest feelings? How can we support others in their healing journey if we have not reached our own healing? How can we establish, maintain, and sustain lasting peace in this world if we have no peace within ourselves? It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. Yes, and for that we ultimately in the end need to leave the illusion, the false reality. It's quite simple, and with that, the ring around your heart and the ring around your mind break open, along with all the fluctuations, the energetic fluctuations, the changes in reality, and perhaps even your spiritual depression. All these are the ups and downs that stress us out repeatedly, so to speak, to shake us free. Yes, that's one way to put it. These emotional ups and downs can be quite challenging and overwhelming, often leaving... Yes, I'm curious to see how you resonate with this podcast episode. And feel free to leave me a comment on how you're feeling at the moment. And yes, maybe you also have some very unusual perceptions. Yes, feel free to share it in the comments as well. I know it always does us good as a community to read that we are not alone. If you like, feel free to follow me on Instagram. There you'll always find nice focused tips for your consciousness development. And if you definitely feel like it, you are very welcome to be my guest on the next live show. Absolutely. It's free, and with a bit of luck, we can even take a look at your biggest problem and see how I can help you with it. So grab your biggest problem, tuck it under your arm, and just bring it along. Okay? With love, the very best for you, dear, your beloved sister in spirit, your Linda, always and forever.